Thank you. Thank you for being here. I have given like more than 40 talks in my researcher career, and this is the first one that I give so late at night. I feel like I'm more ready for drinks than for giving a talk, so let's see how it goes. But thank you for being here, and instead of like drinking already. I feel more important than alcohol. So what I wanted to discuss today is the extent of the sophistication behind RDP attacks. We'll discuss kind of the hacker's playbook, okay, and how the human is implicated, but also the extent of this sophistication. And we can argue for a very long time about what means sophistication, but you'll understand what I mean in this talk, and then we can discuss it all night after that, okay? So the remote desktop protocol, just to make sure everyone is following, it allows the users to connect to computer remotely. And the pandemic, I will not surprise anybody here, but the pandemic radically increased the amount of people using RDP services to work from home. So it has made RDP one of the favorite point of entry for criminal hacker looking for breaking into an organization network. So the attack over the internet do not necessarily need very expensive tools, and this tool can be shared between the attackers. But you know already that they can have very devastating consequences, those attacks. So the point that I wanted to raise in this presentation is that when a human or an organization is a bit more implicated in an automated attack, a bit more motivated, it can increase radically the level of dangerosity. Is it a word in English? No. The level of danger. Yeah. Sorry. And it becomes like we are staying away from the kind of opportunistic spraying and praying attack, and we are going through a more targeted attack, so it's more dangerous. So the objective of this study was really to measure the level of engagement of the human behind the automated attack. So right before jumping in, I will take a second to introduce myself. So how did I end up here? Sorry. I study psychology, I study criminology, I got my Ph.D. from Montreal University, but I was always looking at attackers' behavior. This is my principal subject of research. And then I got hired by GoSecure, which is a cybersecurity company who gives product and services cybersecurity product and services to other companies. But they also have this independent laboratory where I work. Okay, so it's not R&D, it's really research, and I'm the researcher. I'm responsible for conducting all the research and choosing what we are looking at and presenting the result and educating and getting the information out there. And I'm also implicated in the InfoSec community, in the organization of NordSec, which happened in Montreal. You are all cordially invited to this conference in May. And I'm also the scientific director of an open source research group of Montreal University. So yeah, when I was doing my PhD, I was working with the special unit of child exploitation material with the provincial police in Canada. And of course, there was this aspect of how people get access to this illegal material through P2P or the dark web and everything. So there was this technical part of the psychology behind it. But also, I was always interested in policing, right? And you may have noticed the web police is not very efficient right now, right? The web police, in my point of view, is it's us, because we are investigating the web and we are trying to protect people. So, I'm not so far away from my criminology study, in my point of view. So we might have very different objectives according to our different roles in cybersecurity, but we all work in the same direction, which is protecting people as much as we can. So the objective of my whole research program is always to understand the attackers' strategies in order to hopefully develop preventing tool and like thinking together of what we can do to reduce the attacks and protect people and of course kind of investigating as much as possible to get as close as possible to de-anonymize attackers. And all this is done, of course, to increase their cost, and because if they have to change their way of doing things, it's increasing like their time. It's more time-consuming for them. It's more like problematic for them, and this is one of the sub-objectives of all this research. So we'll look at the remote desktop protocol very quickly. We have honeypots. I'll talk a bit about our honeypots. And then the data set that I use to specifically look at indicator of human intervention versus more machine-like behavior. I'll explain all to this in some minutes. And then the results. Yeah. So of course, behind every attack, there is a human. I'm conscious of that. And because we are talking about cybercrime, there's also a machine implicated at some point. So we know that already, but then like the human intervention in those attacks can be seen on a continuum of like, this is a simple script versus I really thought out about my attack and my victim. And so this is a continuum of danger, basically. So the remote desktop protocol is a Microsoft protocol allowing users to access a graphical interface of remote computers. And as I said, with the shift of remote work, companies have relied on remote access tools to manage corporate devices to keep operation running during the pandemic. So there are some less security-aware organizations that get their RDP exposed to the internet. Okay, so basically, usually you'll have a VPN in front of your RDP, but some companies do not have that, unfortunately, even if we keep telling them to do so. And the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency reported an increase of 127% of RDP endpoint exposed to the internet since 2021. Okay, it's huge. It's a lot of exposed RDP endpoint. So it led to a dramatic spike in successful server-side attack and contributed to the RDP becoming one of the most attack vectors used by cybercriminal and more specifically for ransomware groups. So you understand the urgency in understanding attackers' behavior and proposing solutions to improve protection and attack prevention. So to study all this, to study credential attack, to study RDP attack, we operate high interaction honeypot on the internet. Okay, so honeypot is like the real definition, just to make sure everyone knows what I'm talking about. It's a computer security mechanism set to detect, deflect, or in some manner counteract attempt at unauthorized use of information system. So the purpose I cannot say this word. The purpose, anyway, you know what word I'm trying to say. The objective of using a honeypot environment may vary, but we are concerned with research honeypot, of course. So they are isolated from a system and then collect information about attackers' behavior and all their information. So our specific honeypot consists in an open source RDP interception tool that we call PyRDP, and it's in front of a Windows Server environment. And since November 2021, PyRDP supports the capture of NetNTLM hashes of all connection attempts. So not only those who were able to compromise the system, but also everyone who tries to do it. So today, I'm talking about those attempts to log into to the system. So the tool collected more than 3 million credentials in 2022. And so right before I show you briefly what PyRDP does, I just wanted to present to you the genius behind it. Olivier is an engineer and he's the director of research at GoSecure. He has been working on PyRDP for like the past 7 years or something like that. So he worked really hard. And the tool I've been introduced officially in 2018 and is very well maintained, okay? And it is open source and you can use it. And so yeah, I just wanted to make a small parenthesis on PyRDP because it's a very powerful tool. So basically it's a monster in the middle that makes RDP interception, and it saves everything, okay? So we have like a video of what people do once they get in. So I can see you can see it in real time even, the takeover by the attacker, you can see it in real time, or you can of course watch it later because we save everything. But I see everything. I see what they type on their keyboard, I see where they click, I see when they enter their credential for their Telegram account or Gmail account, I see everything. And that's very fun to watch. And there is no way for the attacker to know that it is an honeypot since it is in front of a real Windows server, so he can do everything you want. And we can, of course, scrap the session so we stop doing the bad stuff. So this is a very powerful tool, and as I said, you can use it. It's open source. So, however, for today, the part to which we were interested in the present research was really like the before the compromission, so the logging attempts. And of course, it will be a pleasure to come back another year to show you the videos, the actual videos of what they do once they compromise the service, the system. So how do they compromise our RDP system? It's not like vulnerabilities or backdoors or anything. It's simply a brute force attack. So they basically try the most username and passwords as they can, to try to enter. That's as simple as that. So usually many attempts per second, like they are at war. They're really trying to get in. So I took for this project a subset of 3 months from July to September. And the information that are collected is the timestamp, like the pinpoint in time where the attack happened, the IP address, and the credential they tried, so the username and the password that the attacker tried at that time. And I'm very excited to present you how far we can go into understanding their behavior just from those 3 information. You'll see. And so in the end, in this subset of 3 months, we had like more than 3.5 million attack. And it came from more than, 105,029 different IP address. And I will refer to those IP addresses as the attackers. So to start, I'll show you just a bit of the descriptive analysis of the sample. It's always interesting to know where they come from, what they try as credential. So already we can see with this map that the attack come from all over the world, and it's more intense from Russia and Europe. So, of course, like IP addresses are allocated geographically, but we know it's not surprising to you that they can use like proxies and compromise computers, so it might not be like the real origin of the attacker, but still like using proxies that are geographically closer to you is most likely more efficient very often. So it gives a very interesting evidences. So here is the list of logging attempts by continent. I have classified Russia into Asia because it depends from researcher to researcher. Sometimes we classify it in Europe, but because their behavior was very similar to what China was doing, I classified them with Asia. So we see Asia, Europe, and North America is principally where it comes from. And here we have the more precise distribution. The top 10 country in the database. So most attacks come from Russia, Panama, and China, but I should say Hong Kong more precisely, because like for those who can see the very small little blue bar in top of the China column, you see like the red is from Hong Kong, and then everywhere else in China is the very small blue line. Okay? So mostly from Hong Kong. Here we have the 12 most tried username on our honeypot. So we understand that there is more than 700,000 different usernames in the dataset, but here are the top 12. An account with the username administrator is set up by default on Windows. We know that. It's not surprising then that the username administrator is by far the most popular among attackers. It's like all the variation of the word administrator is like 60% of the dataset used in the username. And so administrator is very present, but then I wanted to draw your attention on like 2 or 3 things here. First, we have our certificate name, okay, which is offshorebank.com. This is what we name our RDP system, okay? And it's there. So they know what our RDP certificate name is. And the other one is the host name. The EC2 Amaz is our host name. So they kind of got this information and then use it and leverage it to insert in their username. So that's clever. Most of previous research said that like the username and the credential that were used in those type of attack were very basic, were like leaked from that were already available on internet. But what we have as a result here is that it's not really the case. They use information, our information, to try to target more the victim. And another thing is whatuptime.com, which is very weird. I thought maybe you all know already what is whatuptime. I didn't. I was like, what's that? It's not a normal username to use. So whatuptime is a template that people can download, can use to download or to install Microsoft Windows operating system on DigitalOcean Droplet. Okay. So they assumed that we were using DigitalOcean Droplet, and they were very right on this point. So so when the system was installed, we began by putting like the RDP and the PyRDP system on Linux, because obviously, right? Like we want to work with Linux, and then we realized that we would not be able to put the Windows server on DigitalOcean, so we were already with DigitalOcean. And then we didn't know about whatuptime.com, so we took like another server, and we went on Amazon server, AWS, to put the Windows system. So there's like 2 ports. And it works really well, but we didn't know about whatuptime.com. Maybe one day we will just do the thing differently, but yeah, this is how it's made. So they saw that we were on DigitalOcean, and then they just assumed that we might be using this tool. So it's another evidence that they use the information against us. And now the password, because I was talking about the usernames that they were trying. Now the password. So there's three more important observation that the quick observation that we can take is, they try a lot of variation of the RDP certificate. They try many variation of the word password, and then they use simple chain of number, like 10 or less number. Okay. So we always say, since the 90s, we say to people that their password have to be like strong, not being like so simple chain of character, not being a variation of the word password, and not using personal information. We'll count the RDP certificate as a personal information here. But this is what we are telling people like since forever, but it's still very important because this is how the attacker proceed, right? Anyway, and some observation very quickly that I thought were interesting. So when username are analyzed in relation with the country of origin of the attack, we can identify like specialized strategies. by each country. So here are some strong examples. When we expose, like the RDP certificate name that I showed you was a strategy that was used by Russia and China, like exclusively. Okay, so this strategy came from there. So that's interesting. And the username ADM, which is obviously a diminutive of administrator, was used exclusively by Nicaragua and Panama. I don't know what trend there is there that they use this, but I mean, it's interesting. There was also 15% of attackers who tried thousands of different passwords, but with the same 5 usernames. So they are very confident in those 5 usernames, which could be a good strategy. I mean, there's also 21% of attacks. In 21% of attacks, attackers use the same username as they use for the password. So administrator, you know, it's another strategy. But assuming that the user is like very lazy. Yeah. In 41% of attackers use the same combination of username password more than once, as if it would work a second time. I don't know what they have in mind, but this is like this drove us to make some hypotheses about this, that maybe they're teams, okay, teams not very well organized, but teams of people who are just trying, like they have shift, and this is something that is documented. Sorry, actually, like in China, they have like those offices with people with day shift and night shift that are trying to compromise systems. So this might be something like that, and they just like do not check what list of credential was already used by one of their colleague, and just do the same. I don't know. This is my hypothesis on that, but I'm still looking at this. Yeah, so I'm done with the descriptive analysis. Let's dive real quick into the research question. So as I said, I perceive the attacker to be on a continuum of human engagement. So yes, you can just launch a script and it will do what you intend to do, but you also can just think more about your attack and make it more targeted. So there's evidence pointing toward the use of automation, but there's also evidence pointing toward the use of human intervention. And this idea comes from, I want to bring you in my head with, like, I'm super excited with all my data, but I'm like, now telling it out loud just to make sure it makes sense. But this is a very beautiful calendar, okay, to look at the patterns of the attack. Okay, so you have on the left you have all days of a month, and then at the bottom you have like all the hours of the day. Okay, so this is 1 month for one IP address, and you can see that there is kind of blocks of attacks. And we can imagine that, of course, because there's so much attack per second, so we can imagine that a list of credentials was launched at that point, at the beginning of the block. But then it stops, and it does not start again until a certain time. So what happens during this time? Maybe the person is not in front of the computer, and a human intervention is necessary to just like start the other, just notice that the attack didn't work, and then start another set of credentials. This is what I was imagining. So yeah, I'll continue with the indicator. So I'll start with the indicator of machine-like behavior. So the number of attack. Of course, like there's no human that will do 100,000 attack in a month. Like this is just impossible. So I consider that this is more machine-like behavior. If the passwords are all present in the list of, like, you know, RockU 2021, like this big list of leaks. Like there's 8.4 billion credentials in this list, so there's a lot of password in this. So if all the passwords come from this list, well, you know, it was not very thought out or very sophisticated, so I considered it as more automated. The constant presence of the attacker over the observation period. So if they attack us for like 3 months in a row, of course there's no human with this time, or like motivation, so I consider it like to be more automated. And finally, if there's several attacks per second, even if you're really good at typing, I mean, it's just impossible to enter this set of credentials. So this is what is associated with machine-like behavior, or we can say like less sophisticated attacks. And then there's the indicator of human-like behavior. So the start of the block that I was showing you on the calendar analysis. So when there is a block that is started following like a very long pause, this is considered as like a human intervention. And then when the attack is customized to its target, I consider it like more thought out strategy. And then when there is a delay between each logging attempt, of course you need to automate this attack for instaring this delay between each. But it is for, well, I suppose, to avoid detection, right? So to try to imitate a human behavior this way. So I considered it as a bit more sophisticated, so human-like. So if I give a point for each of those characteristic or criteria, and then I subtract a point for each of those criteria, we get an engagement score, okay, or a sophistication score. And the middle of this graph is not zero, it's like after zero, like because of the points. So we can see that it is a bit more on the human side than on the machine side. So the attacks were more thought out and were more sophisticated than what we anticipated, and what I thought after just reading all that research that was done on RDP. So I was kind of surprised. I was not expecting those kind of results. I was expecting like very automated, basic, not sophisticated attacks. So that was really interesting. And now what do we learn from this? It's of course not exposing RDP without a VPN, like very basic mitigation here. The lockout policy would help so much, like the new lockout policy on Windows 11 is very good. Like after 10 times, you're just blocked for 10 minutes. So it makes the attack very less efficient, so that's very good. And then keep telling people that username and password are important. I don't know how we can do that better. But also that, like, we talk a lot about password, but the username also is very important, because you need two-factor to get in, right? So the username is as important as the password, even if it is not hashed or something. So the next step, very quickly, because I'm running out of time, observe the general trend in the attack with the calendar type of analysis. We will be looking at the tool they use to customize attack, because they might be using tools that already exist. So let's see if we can grab those tools and see what they're doing. Investigate the list of credentials they use. Investigate the shared origin of the proxies, and analyze the videos, the actual video, and I'll come back to talk about this next year. And just before finishing, I have this other research that I'm conducting right now so we are releasing each 20 month a report on the perception of people about their cybersecurity versus the reality with our pen testing results. So it allows to identify the weakness part of cybersecurity and propose action to counter it. So this project is in collaboration with the Human-Centric Partnership, the Canadian Human-Centric Partnership. So if you want to fill up the survey for me, it will help me so much. It's like max 10 minutes of your time. Okay. So I would be very, very glad. So do I have time for question? I don't think so. I have like 1 minute. No question. Okay. So come and see me. It will be a pleasure to answer your question and chat more. Thank you.